The movie I've chosen to discuss for this project is the 2015 film Inside Men. This movie is a fully fictional depiction of an example of political corruption taking place in South Korea. The movie is based on a webtoon, which is a digital comic that originated in South Korea. The webtoon is called The Insiders and depicts corrupted systems in South Korea. The director of this movie is named Woo Min-ho. He has directed 6 full-length movies in his career, and The Inside Men was his third one. Min-ho is known for his thriller genre movies, as he takes genres such as comedy, revenge, and politics and incorporates thrilling aspects into them. His debut movie was called Man of Vendetta and is a revenge thriller. His next movie was called The Spies and was a comedy thriller, and his third movie was Inside Men, which we know is a political thriller. Min-ho is a successful director and has been awarded several awards across categories such as Best Director, Film, and Screenplay. This movie was released on November 19th of 2005. On its first 4 days at the South Korean box office, the film grossed 13.2 billion won. Inside Men drew more than 2 million viewers in just 6 days, a record for an R-rated film. It has also set the record for the most viewed R-rated movie in a single day, with 489,503 viewers. After this movie came out, it was regarded as the top-grossing rated R movie in all of Korean box office history. The actors in this movie, as well as the movie itself, won over 15 awards. Some examples of awards are Best Film, Best Director, and Best Actor. Now let's discuss the cast of this film. I would say that 3 of the 5 characters on this page get most of the screen time in the movie, but all 5 characters hold an important role in the film. The first of 3 prominent characters I would like to discuss is An Sang-gu, who is played by Lee Byung-hun. He's a former gangster who used to commit crimes for highly powerful individuals. An used to be healthy and run agencies and entertainment, but when he gives something of great power to the wrong person, his life comes tumbling down. Next, we discuss Woo Jong-jun, who is played by Cho Sung-woo. Woo is a prosecutor who used to be an ex-police officer. The audience find out that he quit the police force because he is tired of not seeing those he arrests being prosecuted. Next, we move on to Lee Kang-hee, played by Bak Yo-sik, who is the head writer for a newspaper. Although he seems like a good guy, he uses his media power to influence things unfairly. Now we move on to the less seen, but still prominent characters in the movie. Jang Pil-woo, played by Lee Gwing-yong, is a political figure who is trying to win a primary election so that he can represent his party in government. Finally, Oh Hyun-soo is played by Kim Hong-pal, who is the owner of Mirai Motors and is the financial back to all the corruption that occurs in this movie. All 5 of these actors give compelling performances in this movie. These performances make up for the slow plot development and keep the viewers engaged. Although this movie is 3 hours long, I saw it as having 3 different parts: the opening act, the second act, and the third act. The scenes shown in the bottom left of the screen and the top right of the screen are from the opening act. The opening act does a lot of character building and shows several flashbacks that help allow the viewer to understand the context of everything going on in the movie. By the end of the first act, we learn about An, who can be seen in the middle of the bottom left picture, deciding to expose Lee Kang-hee, the writer, Oh Hyun-soo, the wealthy owner of Mirai Motors, and Jang, who is a politician trying to who's trying to win the primary election, but he is corrupt, and that's how he's rising to power. Through flashbacks, we learn that he is trying to expose these 3 because they found out that he had dirt on them. They cut off his arm and throw him in a medical facility where they feed him pills and basically make him starve. When he gets out, because the medical facility closed due to financial hardships, he decides that he will take revenge on them for what they did to him. The scene in the bottom right of the screen is from the second act of the movie. In my opinion, this act was not all that entertaining and felt like filler scenes to make the plot develop a little slower. A lot of this act consists of Prosecutor Woo and An forming an alliance because they both want to take down the trio of powerful figures that are getting power through corruption. Woo is motivated because he wants justice, and An is motivated by his revenge. The 2 team up, and the second act ends with An turning himself in so that a copy of the evidence that he has can be used to take down the powerful corrupt trio. The third act is the most exciting, with several things happening very quickly. Without spoiling the movie, all I can say is that there are several twists and turns in this act that make up for the very long and somewhat boring first 2 acts of this movie. The several twists and turns lead to the downfall of one of the 2 groups in this movie, and the other group finally getting what they had wanted all along. The movie does an amazing job of building relationships between characters and helping viewers understand why they treat each other the way that they do. If you want to know what happens at the end of this movie, I suggest that you take the time to watch it, although it is long. Although the ending may be a little unrealistic, it ties together all the loose ends of the movie and provides the viewers a winner and loser of the story. Now, let's discuss the historical background of this movie. Although there is no true historical background to this movie because the end credits clearly say that this movie is entirely fictional, Corruption in government is one that I thought of myself. There have been several instances of corruption in the South Korean government, and South Korea's people have reflected that in their opinions of the government. For example, in the Corruption Perceptions Index, South Korea scored a 63. 0 means very corrupt and 100 means not corrupt at all. Although 63 is not a bad score, there were 31 countries that were ranked less corrupt than South Korea. In another study, it was found that 70% of South Koreans distrust their government. South Korea heard their citizens and decided to take action by implementing the Act on the Protection of Public Whistleblowers. Although this will not fix all of the South Korean corruption problems, it is definitely a step in the right direction. Now let's take a look at the pictures on the right side of the screen. First we see Park Geun-hye, who is a former South Korean president who was said to be improperly influenced by a cult leader who said that he saw Park's mom in his dream. He improperly influenced her to make important decisions, which led to Park being accused on counts of bribery and abuse of power. Now, moving on to Lee Myung-bak, who is also a former South Korean president who was also found to be corrupt because he used his girlfriend at the time's brother to make money to fund his campaign. His girlfriend's brother was accused of embezzlement, and since he was connected to Lee was also found corrupt. Now I'd like to discuss what I learned and took away from this movie. The prominent theme in this movie was power. We learn about how an owner of a car company is able to corruptly fund the entirety of a campaign for a politician who did not have the money himself. We also see several examples of the head writer for the media company using his power to influence the opinion of people in South Korea. The media is known as a trustworthy outlet, so he can write basically whatever he wants about a political candidate to make them look good or bad. The power, or lack of, for a common citizen is also shown in this movie. Prosecutor Woo is a normal citizen with no connections, which is why he's basically an underdog this whole movie. He has no power at all and always has to play from behind. We also learn about the use of violence and how these high-power individuals will abuse it to get what they want. There were several scenes in this movie that were too gruesome for me to watch because of the presence of blood and facial emotions being made by the individuals who were begging for mercy. Although this movie is fictional, there are several instances of violence that have taken place in relation to corruption in South Korea. Another thing I learned in this movie was that you can use knowledge to beat out power. Although Prosecutor Woo has no power, he's able to use his knowledge and quick thinking to find ways to get himself out of bad situations. After Ahn loses all his power, we see him begin to talk out plans with others and hold meetings with his accomplices so that he can gather info. Both the prosecutor and Ahn use their knowledge to try to beat out the powerful corrupt trio. Moreover, I also learned about how women are thought of in South Korean gangster and high-power settings as well. Women were objectified throughout this entire movie, and to be quite frank, there's little to no female presence in this movie. I think the director may have done this on purpose to emphasize the fact that women were not highly thought of in these settings, and if anything, they were an afterthought to business conversations, as shown in the movie. Finally, I learned about resilience. Although the prosecutor and Ahn were always at a disadvantage and even failed at times, they kept trying to get exactly what they wanted. When they realized that they were both fighting for the same cause, they teamed up and ultimately benefited each other. My final thoughts on this movie are that it is not for the lighthearted, as several inappropriate things happen throughout the movie on screen. The movie is full of thrills, and I would consider it a must-watch for anyone that is interested in movies that are more serious in nature, but also have several twists and plot turns that make you really stay engaged. I also want to mention that I chose this color scheme for my presentation to represent the dark tones of the movie as well as the violence. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and I hope you enjoyed my review. Thanks!